Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Elevate Your Integration, Take Outlook for Salesforce to the Next Level. My name is Jill McConaughey, and I am LinkPoint 360's Director of Marketing and Client Relations. I also have our Professional Services Manager, Jana Vovcik, on the call with me today, and we both appreciate you taking time out of your day to consider LinkPoint Connect and explore it as an email integration solution for Salesforce. Now, before we start, I do want to review a few quick items. All attendees are muted and placed in listen-only mode for the duration of the webinar. And we're going to start the call with a pretty full agenda and a full review of our flagship email integration solution, LinkPoint Connect. But if you have questions for us today, you can feel free, of course, to send them over to us. So type them up in the questions section of the GoToWebinar panel, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for some Q&A at the end of the session and review your questions then, take a look and see if there's any use cases that need to be addressed if we didn't cover them already during the presentation. So today, as I said, we have a pretty full agenda, and I'll be starting the conversation with some of the topics that I've sort of listed out here. We're going to start by doing a quick overview of LinkPoint Connect security and installation, and we'll touch on briefly some of the customization and configuration options available at a very high level that helps to kind of have these in mind as you're looking at critical factors and choosing the right solution. It also helps to keep it in mind once you actually start to see the software in action. Then we'll actually take a look at the software, and we'll do a demo for you today, concentrating on email recording and some of the extra productivity features around that, as well as how to create and edit and generally work with Salesforce records and how we make that part of your workflow that much more easy. I will touch briefly on our sync functions. They can get pretty in-depth, but I want to make sure people are aware of the different available options. And if we have time, we will also talk very briefly about our meeting notes integration option, which can fit different workflow needs. So I like to start by talking at a high level about how LinkPoint Connect lends itself to a range of installation environments and security needs, because before you can pick what software you want to work with, you have to know that it's going to work for your environment. So our security and wide range of access options are one way that we stand out from other solutions on the market. It's a big deal to allow any application access to your email accounts and certainly your Salesforce environment. So we've designed our software to be super secure as well as flexible because we know different clients have different needs around this. LinkPoint Connect, and you can see there's a lot of bullet points here. I'll kind of throw them up on the screen, but at a high level so you understand how it works. It integrates directly with Salesforce. So we're using the Salesforce API. We work with Salesforce SSO, and we don't store your information on a LinkPoint 360 server. So we're just passing the information out of your Outlook and up to Salesforce or back down. Speaking of Salesforce, and talking again about flexibility, we support whether you're using the classic version or the Lightning version of Salesforce and all the different editions of Salesforce as well, including partner communities. We do not require a Salesforce admin. So if you are a sales manager or a support team manager, but you don't have Salesforce admin access, you can still move forward with our solution and deploy it to your teams. And we also don't require Einstein for email recording. If you have it, that's great, but it's not a requirement. From another security perspective, we honor all of your Salesforce permissions. So people aren't going to find a backward way to access your Salesforce data through our app. If they can't get to it in Salesforce, they can't get to it with ours. And we do support the Salesforce Shield encryption. And the last two bullet points, again, it's super important to make sure you have a secure solution that works inside your email environment as well. We install directly inside of Outlook. So we're not requiring exchange passwords, credentials. You don't have to expose your EWS URL endpoints, so you don't have to worry about compromising your email client to have your email integrate with your CRM. Now, regarding installation, sort of the other part of this conversation, we offer a variety of options and support. So if you're an individual user or a less centralized company, It's super simple. You take the installer file and you can put it per machine locally as needed. If you need more options as a larger organization or organizations with a lot of security and compliance issues or concerns, you can control the deployment. So we provide customer installation packages. Jana's team does a lot of work with this to make sure that custom files meet your specific deployment requirements. So you can see we can be 100% on-premise. You can use your own software deployment tools or do a silent install. We support a variety of virtual desktop environments such as Citrix and terminal services. Roaming profiles, doesn't matter which way you're set up, we support that. You can do scripts to do the deployment, and sort of a last bullet point here, and maybe it doesn't quite belong here, but from the other angle, if you're using an IMAP or a POP3 server, you can 100% connect through Outlook, and our system will work with that. So it doesn't have to be necessarily an Exchange hosted email provider. And I know that's a lot of information up front, and I haven't even shown you the software yet, but if there are other features, concerns, installation options, security items that you want to ask about or want us to do a consultation on, you can always email sales@linkpoint360.com, and we will be more than happy to help clarify how we can help support your environment. Now that I've talked a lot about how secure our software is and how it fits into your tech setup and how you can get it on your computer, we're actually going to take a look at how you interact with it. And I always want to preface before I start a demo by saying that what you're going to see me demo today reflects my test account. I'll be Sally as a test user, and my very, very vanilla Salesforce. The great thing is that LinkPoint Connect will detect all custom objects, fields, and record types out of the box. So what you see on my screen in a minute may look different than yours, and that's a good thing because we're going to mirror your exact CRM setup. And since we follow the permissions and access relative to Salesforce, your instance actually may vary a tiny bit from your colleagues if your permission levels are a little different. So again, that's a good thing. And as I mentioned, our professional services team, headed up by my colleague Jana, will be available to help customize default settings. We can lock down certain features and generally consult on best practices to make sure that this will fit your workflow needs. So just because I'm not showing it doesn't mean it's necessarily not available. Okay, so now that we've talked about all the logistical items, let's have some fun and actually take a look at the software. So I'm going to go ahead here and hopefully switch out of my PowerPoint presentation. There you go. And hopefully now everyone can see my Outlook. Just get GoToWebinar out of my way. Great. All right, so I know I have some new names on the attendee list today, and I see some people who have used our software in the past, but I'm going to talk about this from a high-level perspective, and then if there are things that you want to see a little bit more of or have specific questions on, again, we'll certainly go ahead and address those. So with LinkPoint Connect, and you can see LinkPoint Connect here on the right side of my Outlook and the side panel, all integration between Outlook and Salesforce is done, except for a few minor sync controls from the side panel. So that's where we're going to be spending most of our time today. So you're going to view, record, and create everything right from this panel. Now, if you're a little concerned about it taking up space, and I know a lot of us are working remote, maybe stuck with a laptop monitor that's a little bit small, you can hide, expand, or collapse that. And there's this little button here in the top corner. So I can pop that out of the way if I need a little bit more room to work. I also want to point out I have zoomed my side panel in quite a bit because I know it can be hard sometimes to see it in the GoToWebinar interface. So your font sizes and your side panel don't have to be this large. I've tinkered with mine to make it hopefully easier for everyone to see today. The side panel itself, and most of what LinkPoint Connect does, is email address centric. So we're showing related information and opening up that window to Salesforce based on email addresses. So in this case, you can see here I've selected an email in my inbox, and there are a couple people on it, recipients and senders and so forth. And the side panel looked at every single email address on it it searched Salesforce automatically and it found matching contacts and related records for me. So in this case, you can see I have Fred and I have Jake as Salesforce contacts. I also have these other related sections, and we can click these arrows to pop them open. So you see I have an account that we found, a couple of opportunities here. And again, this is just some test data for demo purposes. If you want to learn more, because this is a bit of a snapshot, and figure out, well, which Fred is this? What's the last thing we did regarding Fred? You can click these little caret icons here. I don't know what else to call that, and click to see the record details. And what record details does, when my computer is cooperating, is it gives you a full view of all of the related Salesforce records for that person. And I'm doing the whole VM thing today, so it's clearly not going to cooperate, so I apologize. Once you have that information and you feel very oriented with your Salesforce data, you can start recording your emails. So for this particular case, let's just take a look at how to record to a single record. Super simple, takes one click. Anywhere you see a checkbox in the side panel, you can click the checkbox and record the email. How do I know it recorded? A couple of things just happened very fast on my screen. I got a pop-up notification telling me it recorded. I have a CRM category here on the email telling me this has been recorded. And going backward, the most clear is now this related to Salesforce section here at the bottom lists Fred. So this is going to be your running list of everywhere this email has been recorded. So let's add Jake to the mix, check the box, and now Jake has been bumped down to the bottom and stacked along with Fred. So this email is now on 2 Salesforce records. Pretty easy. Let's add to an opportunity. Pick an opportunity, check the box. So pretty quick and easy. I'm kind of spending some time on it here in case this is new to some of you, but all you have to do is check the box. If you make a mistake, you can uncheck the box, and now the email is not recorded to that opportunity. And I'm going to back all the way out for demo purposes. The last checkbox, when I remove it, the email is no longer in Salesforce, so it fully removes the email as well as any associations. I'm going to refresh the panel. There we go. The next thing we can do is we can work with suggestions. So, oops, clicking all the wrong things here today. So for taking the suggestions, you can simply come down to the bottom here and click to accept suggestions. And so that's a single click when there's more than one option listed for you to really quickly add the email to multiple records if they're listed. And I'm just having some sort of side panel meltdown here. Give me one moment. I'm actually going to reboot because I'm working on a VM. The joys of remote work. I'm sure everyone can relate. Let's just see if this helps me out. Have to be able to think on your feet when you're demoing from a new computer. Let's see if this cooperates, hopefully. Actually, while that's loading, I'll check the questions. That might be helpful because I see there's a couple listed here. While we wait to see if my Outlook will load. So let's see. The first question I have is whether, yes, I am recording this webinar. Hopefully I can get everything to cooperate and we can continue. But I will send out a link to the recording so you will get this in its entirety. The zooming of the side panel, I hold the control button on my keyboard and I move the little mouse wheel on my mouse while I'm hovered over it. So that's kind of hard to show because you can't see my mouse, but hopefully, there we go. Hopefully that makes sense. And let's see. There's one other thing. I'm just going to read this question real quick. And Michael, regarding your question about logging emails that don't have subject lines, let's take a look at that separately. I'll make a note and send you an email, and maybe we can have my colleague Yana take a look at that after the call just to see if there's a little quirk or maybe something different about your workflow that we have to approach, but definitely not going to skip over that for you. All right. Now that my Outlook is working again on my remote machine, let's go ahead and get the side panel to populate. Perfect. Okay. So back where we were, when you have multiple suggestions down here at the bottom of the panel and you want to record to all of them, you can do so in a single click. So you saw me click this checkbox and then this checkbox and add Fred and Jake in 2 clicks. If you have multiple contacts on this email, you can simply click to accept, and now it's in one move. It's actually recording to both Fred and Jake. Okay? The other thing about email recording, and I know we're spending some time in the inbox and we'll be switching over to outbound email in about 2 seconds, is working with attachments. So you can see this email has a sample PDF on it. And if I expand this attachment section, I see that listed here as well as an option. So if you want to record the attachment with the email, simply check the box and see that sample PDF bumped down to the bottom of my side panel. And along with recording the email, now that attachment has gone over to Salesforce. And you'll see that either in Notes and Attachments or in the Files section, depending on how you have Salesforce configured. So it supports both. Just going to remove that. Okay. Now let's take a look at outbound email. Let me just go ahead and pop this out so we can play a little bit. Okay. Now I'm replying to Fred here, and the first thing you should notice is that in my reply, I have a side panel. So mostly the exact same functionality you have on inbound works on outbound. The second thing you can see here is I have the related references down in the bottom here from that first email I recorded. And if you don't want it to suggest that, you can turn that off. But what we're doing is we're guessing pretty intelligently that since you recorded the first email with Fred and Jake, you're probably going to want to record the second emails as well. If that's completely incorrect or you want to refine it, you can just uncheck these boxes. So you're not stuck with whatever options they're presenting here. Let's make this a little larger. Hopefully people can see that. Okay. Same difference, right? So we can go in and we can relate to accounts, opportunities, cases. And again, like I said, this is going to look different for you because you may have different or custom objects and options here. I'm just working with what I have. Everything you're seeing so far has been based off of the email addresses. You can search. So if I need someone, oops, caps lock, there we go. If I need someone completely different, I can search, and this is a direct Salesforce search. So now I'm looking at Tom, who I searched, and Tom's different related options. So I can go ahead and stack that. So now I've got 2 different people from 2 different accounts down here. So the search is pretty robust and you should be able to find, as long as the record is in Salesforce and you have permission to work with it, you should be able to work with it here. If this email had an attachment on it, this example just doesn't, you would see attachments here, check the box, attachments work exactly the same way. Okay. A few other related productivity features, and they can work on an inbound email. I like to show it on outbound because from a workflow perspective. The first is that you can create a follow-up task. Typically when I'm emailing out, I'm promising to either schedule a call with someone or I'm promising to schedule or to send them something in 2 weeks, and I'm not going to remember that. So typically I'd have to do that and then go actually create my reminder somewhere. With LinkPoint, you can click this icon here in the related section. You have to have at least one record selected, which we have plenty. And that's going to launch what we call a snap form. Again, this will look like your task fields and your task page layout. It's all dynamic based off of what you have in Salesforce, including your required fields. And you can see I have quite a few in red. I can fill this out pretty quickly here and create a task adjusting all my required fields because otherwise I won't be able to pass go. And then check the green box here. And now when I send and record this, it's also going to create that task for me in Salesforce. So that was pretty quick. I didn't have to do too much thinking. I could have done more if I needed to. But now I'm creating a follow-up task in the exact same workflow that I would be sending and responding to an email. Next, I want to talk for 2 seconds about how to make sure the email is clear when you see it in Salesforce. So by default, the emails that you record are going to show in your activity history as completed tasks. If you're using Salesforce Enhanced Email, we also support that. We just have to enable it for you during setup. Pretty simple process. You just have to let your rep know that you want to test it out using the Enhanced Email object. When those start to get stacked up in Salesforce on a record, let's say this is the 15th email with Fred instead of just the second, I don't need 15 of the same exact subject line listed in my history. It's not going to tell me what the conversation is about at this point. It's probably not, hi, how are you? Now it's, I'm a customer, I need a training. It's a little bit more refined. So to change how that appears, you can click this View Salesforce Fields button down here in the bottom of my panel. And you can be prompted with the option to change the subject and the contents of how this appears in Salesforce. You can be as descriptive or not as you need to. And when I click this green check, when the email gets recorded, it's not going to have the same subject line as what's sent. It's going to have something that's a little bit more informative. The great thing is Fred's going to have no idea that I changed that. So it's going to still say next steps subscription for Fred. Okay, but that just makes things a little bit more manageable, a little more helpful when you or someone else sees those items in Salesforce later. One last comment on outbound email while we're here. I find it's like a 50-50 shot whether people are using these. We do support Salesforce email templates. So if you are leveraging those in your CRM and you want to use them in Outlook, we do fully support merge fields, templates. Makes it pretty simple. It's this button right here. Third one in on the left at the top. I'm not going to walk through the whole thing here, but you can pretty simply go through a very quick wizard and do merge fields and use your Salesforce email template. So if that's something you're interested in, you can let me know and we can send you an article on that. Okay. I'm not using a template. I'm just going to go ahead and send this just for demo purposes. And now we've gone ahead and recorded an email to 3 records, created a follow-up task, and altered how that's going to look in Salesforce all in one shot. And I know I spent a lot of time there. Once you get comfortable with the different options, and some of them may not be applicable to your workflow, it moves much quicker. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk for a bit about record creation. You can record emails and view Salesforce data all day long, but I find that's only helpful if you have the correct data inside Salesforce. So the side panel allows you not just to view, and let's move this up here, not just view information, like I can see a little bit of info about Jake here at the top, but also create and edit data. And you can do this without going to Salesforce. Okay, so let's switch to an email from someone who's not in Salesforce. I think, there we go. All right. How do I know that Michael's not in Salesforce? Well, I'm not getting any of those related information fields, and I'm getting something called link point connections instead. So there are several ways you can create contacts and leads. I'll go over them at a high level. Some people allow their users to create contacts from Outlook. Some have rigid rules in place and don't. But connections is the newest option, and essentially it monitors your inbox and keeps track of all the new people who you come into contact with. It keeps them in a list, and it makes it easy for you to choose when and where you want to update them or add them to Salesforce or not. So when I'm on an email, connections is contextual. So here's Michael emailing me, and here's Michael on the side. And our software looks at the email signature, and it pulls in as much information as it can here. The next step is to choose how I want to act. So you have options here. Let's click on, there we go, to create a Salesforce contact, to create a Salesforce lead, or you can even create an Outlook contact if you just want it to be a local thing and maybe you have your Outlook contacts syncing with your phone and then you could call Michael. So however you want to do it, let's take a look at lead. So what I've done is I've just clicked one button, and here's another snap form. And it's completely pre-populated for me. Okay, so I like this option because I don't have to type as much. Note that your forms will look different than mine. Note that your required fields are still here, so if it doesn't happen to populate one of them, you will have to do that. You can see I think it's cut off. There's the address. The address is all filled in. And when you're ready, you can click this green check and it'll create that record in Salesforce in real time. I'm not going to do that because he's my example. Okay. If you don't want to use Michael at all, just click this X. It'll go away. He'll get out of your hair. You don't have to worry about it. A quick note about connections. I did say that since we're on the Michael email, we're seeing Michael on the side. If you want to see a full running list of all of your connections, down in the bottom of the side panel, in the middle, there's this little circle icon. If you click that, I'm only using test data, so most people will have more than 2 people they've been working with. But you can see an aggregated list of all of the people, and you can kind of power through these if you want to do your contact cleanup in batches rather than ad hoc as you're communicating with others. Okay. Close this. The other way that you can create records without typing is drag and dropping. So very similar. We're going to work with the email signature. I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to click down with my left mouse button, hold it, and drag. So I'm still pushing down on that mouse button. And in the bottom left corner is this drop zone icon. Hopefully you're seeing that turn orange when I mouse over it. And when I let go, I'm presented with some options. So I can create an account, a contact, a lead. Again, this could be different depending on what you have access to in Salesforce. So let's go ahead and create a contact. If my computer will cooperate. And what it does is there we go, it pre-populates, again, a snap form, in this case it's my contact form, with all of the information that we have presented. Okay, so again, I can drag and drop and be done. Just depends on your workflow preference. I like drag and drop even more for existing records. So we know Fred is in my Salesforce because we've recorded an email to him. But let's say I'm either not thinking clearly that day, or I don't remember I created him, or I want to see if something changed. Let's try to create another Fred. And the first thing that happens is our active update says, Jill, you need to stop. You might have a duplicate issue. And it says, are you sure that you want to create a new contact with this information? Or do you want to update and overwrite the current Fred? And you can choose either path. Okay, so what I like about this is it shows you differences. Maybe someone's title changed. In this case, I have an address change and a phone number change. So it keeps you up to date on what the most accurate information is for a contact. I've talked a lot about contacts, leads, and accounts. You can work with other record types. Top right corner, there's this form icon. Your list will look different than mine. This is where you're going to see how to create new records for your custom objects. Each one will reflect, let's pull opportunity up, your fields and your required workflows. Actually, let's look at account, because it'll also allow you to work with record type. So for accounts, I have record type, and again, my demo data is not super fancy, but I can actually change my record type, and then the fields will dynamically change to mirror that as well. So again, snap forms, pretty helpful if you're trying to create something from scratch. You can also use them contextually. So let's say I want to create for Jake a new task. I can click on the same form button, but I'm on a record, and get options for contextual records. So let's click task. And this isn't entirely blank now because I generated it from Jake's record. So you're seeing it's related to Jake automatically. You can certainly override that. We're pulling in, since I'm on an email, the contents of the email. So we're doing as many things as we can to be helpful, but you still have to go through your required processes and fields. Okay. While we're talking about the icons, just a few things that I think can be helpful. You can edit a record at any time with a pencil icon. And let's see, you'll see them. There it is on an account. Here it is on a record. And if I click that, it's going to pop up that now very familiar form, and I can actually make real-time changes to a Salesforce record. There it is on a contact. I like to show this on an opportunity. It's a great way for you to change a stage. So if someone's just written back and now I can move something forward. I think my VM is getting tired. You can certainly update the opportunity stage from here as well. So it just depends on what you're looking for, but this edit option I can find to be pretty handy. The preferences pane I'll spend a couple of minutes on because I see a couple questions coming through about configuration. So in the bottom corner here, let's see if this is going to cooperate for me. You can pop open the preferences pane. There we go. And it looks like a lot, but the two main areas are your general and your advanced. Okay. Lots going on in here. We have a full knowledge base that goes through every single option if you get to the point where you want to explore that. The ones I think stand out the most, and I see a question over there from Lawrence about automatically logging attachments. Attachments do not record by default. That's a safety mechanism so you don't junk Salesforce up with a bunch of files, but you can choose, here you go, to automatically select and record all attachments. So there's my checkbox. Then this box here is very helpful because you want to record all attachments, but not everybody's Twitter icons. So the GIFs, the JPEGs, the PNGs, that's where you can exclude those, or certain files. Maybe if you always send out the same like brochure.doc or something a little more creative than that, you can set this up so that you'll always record attachments unless they fit some criteria. So I like to point that out as like an extra configuration option. If you're going to check this box, take 10 seconds and refine it a little so you don't start clogging Salesforce up with some strange pictures and so forth. In the advanced section, if you want to do the edit the email and subject like you saw me do a couple minutes ago, I believe that feature might be off by default. So if you want to work with that, come into the preferences for advanced and check this last box here to allow you to edit the subject and body. Okay. If there's something else that you're trying to achieve and you can't find the configuration setting, again, you can contact our team. Our professional services team can help you with the configuration, but you do have some flexibility to play with these settings as much as you need. Let's close that out. So we've talked about email recording. We've talked about how the side panel generates information from Salesforce. We talked some high level about how to create and edit records. I do want to mention another offering we have, and that's our meeting recap feature. Now, I don't have that access set up on this computer, but I can show you a preview of what it looks like because I think it can be helpful for some folks. So let me just pull that up. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Let's switch. So hopefully now you're seeing a PowerPoint slide. There we go. With a bunch of screenshots. And what is this? Okay. Meeting Recap is designed to capture meeting notes and account or record-based feedback so that you can keep content in Salesforce up to date. And it's a little different than what we talked about with updating records just with a snap form. There's actually some methodology behind this. You can see here on this one image that there's a meeting recap icon that we have in our side panel. So you can deploy it from there. You also see on this picture that we have a mobile app for this. So a lot of our customers with, maybe not right now with the pandemic, but with reps out in the field or people working a lot from mobile devices, when we get back to that, it really helps people enter data on the go and make sure it tracks not just back to the right record, but it gives you valuable insight. So what we do is customers define custom questions and answers. They deploy it to their end users. And then when a meeting ends or a certain task function has to be performed, the user flips through this customized experience of question and answer. And one of the benefits of that is you're not just getting them to update fields, they're doing it consistently. So you can, if you have 25 reps, you can report off of prospect change or how many items are in a certain pipeline status or a custom field that matches what you're doing your KPIs based off of. So it doesn't just get the info, it gets the info in a way that's reportable and that's measurable or coachable. If you start seeing trends with your teams and you need to kind of give them a little bit of guidance on how to change things. The fields and the data are updated in Salesforce once you submit a recap. It can be scheduled to email a manager so they get an email notification with a summary so that you get sort of real-time updates on these interactions. And like I said, it's really great for pipeline management, coaching, data quality, population. It does require an extra little bit of free trial access. So if you try to play with it and you can't get it to go, just email sales@linkpoint360.com and we'll get that turned back on for you. Takes a little bit of time to think through the experience you want your users to go through, but the people who have implemented this have found that the data quality drastically improves. All right, let's get out of PowerPoint. Come back here, and it looks like I'm okay on time, so I'm going to talk for a few minutes about syncing, because that's a big part of what LinkPoint Connect can do. And syncing is the only piece that's not in your side panel. So we're going to come down to my taskbar, and I'm actually going to launch our LinkPoint Assist box. Okay, hopefully that's in the middle of my screen. And we'll go to the Sync tab. All of our sync controls are located in LinkPoint Assist, which is this box that I've popped up. And we have separate options for calendar, contact, and task sync. You can have this run automatically. You can have this run manually, you can do it one way, you can do it bidirectional, and you can do it differently for each sync type. So what's great about this is if you have your users working mainly off their Outlook calendar and you need that in Salesforce to report, you can sync up. If you're creating all your tasks in Salesforce, because that's what's easy, and LinkPoint Connect creates tasks in Salesforce, but you need the tasks locally because you work in Outlook, you can turn the task sync on and bring everything down to Outlook. It depends on your workflow requirements. If you want to enable these, you can certainly do so. I tend to recommend a consultation, nothing major, but they work so well, there's no undo button. So many users find that it helps to kind of talk through exactly how they want the data to move, and that's what our pro services team and Yana really specialize in, is making sure that things are going to move the way that you expect. If you come in, if you're a current customer and you come in here and you don't see all of these options or you can't alter them, we do also customize these features so we can pre-configure and lock them down. So if you're considering LinkPoint and that's something important to you, we can make sure that all your end users don't just go kind of crazy and start syncing things. We can lock it down, we can pre-configure it, or we can just shut it off. Again, it just depends on what you're looking to achieve. You can one-off record certain things, like, let's pull one up real quick if it's going to cooperate for me today. Here we go. Let's get a meeting. Like calendar items if you don't have the sync enabled. So in this case, let's do a real quick test. So I can use my side panel here, and I'm just on a massive delay with my VM. But I can use my side panel here when my VM is cooperating. There we go. And actually, I'm not working with email, but it looks very similar. I can actually tag calendar items one-off up to Salesforce. Now, you saw me create a message here, or an invite, and try to relate it. And I have this box pop up. This is the last piece of custom functionality I want to cover, and that's we can support additional Salesforce fields and validation during certain processes. I'm showing it to you here on calendar. We can add this to email. We can add this to tasks. Essentially, you can add an email or you can add an invite to Salesforce. And that's great because someone will know you had a meeting with Fred. But you can force your users to enter additional information when they're recording or creating their events so that you can understand more context around those items. So in this case, to even record one-off this calendar item, I have to enter some values. Now when I check this box, it's going to allow me, as you see my bottom left of my side panel here, it's going to allow me to relate it. And when I send this, it's going to add the event to Salesforce, so it'll hit my calendar, relate it to Fred, and it's going to fill out those Salesforce fields, these, that I just completed. So the event fields for type, category, and I have number of attendees are going to be entered. Fully configurable, fully optional. We show the required fields by default so that we always comply with your Salesforce rules. And then when you click send, it's going to take care of all that data management for you. Okay, there's a lot of nuts and bolts behind syncing, and I went at it at a very high level because, again, some accounts get very detailed on their workflow requirements and some don't bother syncing, but I did want to spend the few minutes there on that topic. Okay, that covers everything. I know it was a lot. Thanks for hanging in there with me. But that covers everything I had prepared to show you for today's call. I'm actually going to switch gears now. I know I answered a few of these questions earlier, but we'll go ahead and do the Q&A. Looks like we've got about 15 or so minutes here. So if you haven't sent a question over, or you want to see something again, or something specific to your use cases, go ahead and send them to me now. And I'm going to go ahead and pop open the question bar and take a look at what else we have here. So let's see. Okay, so can you review how I access the follow-up task on inbound and outbound again? Absolutely. Let's do it from an inbound since I'm sitting in my inbox. Step 1, record the email to at least one record. And I've done that because I still have this thread hanging out here in the bottom of the related to Salesforce section. Step 2, it's kind of a funny icon. It's a little like clock stopwatch guy. You'll see him right here in the related to Salesforce bar. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click that. And that's what pops up that create task snap form. Okay, so that's where you fill everything out. You have to do the required fields. Finish. When you're done, click your little green check, and then that'll go right up to Salesforce. You can change this if you work with events instead of tasks. That's configurable. So if you prefer to have it work that way, you can change it in your preferences. It's an option. All right. Next question here. Let's see. Okay, that's a good question. Which is the most recommended method to create a new Salesforce lead or contact? Drag and drop with the drop zone or using connections? Are there any differences in the functionality or the populating? It's kind of situational, and it's a little hard for me to say which one is like the best because it's going to depend also on your personal workflow and needs. I find if you're in a hurry, I don't know how many people get in a hurry to create contacts, but if you are in a hurry and you are on an email here and you just want to click and go, use connections. You can click, it'll go, you don't have to think about it. If you're looking at a very large email signature and maybe you see connections didn't, in some cases, pick up all of those field values or something might not look like it's there, use the drag and drop because you have control over exactly which of this data you're pulling in. You also don't have to bring in the whole thing, right? So if you only want to work with certain information, some email signatures are a lot more messy than the one I have here on my screen. So that kind of depends. Drag and drop is really great, like I said, for detecting changes. So if you're working with someone, you can also just use that and do the active update with that sort of dupe blocker in it. Let's see. Can LinkPoint Connect be set up to automatically post emails to Salesforce? No. So this tool is designed for people working one-on-one with emails. So there's nothing in this version that's going to automatically move your emails to Salesforce. I think that's a good thing. It sounds like it's not because you have to take the effort, but it makes sure that you're putting things in the right places. And then you have the extra control to fine tune that and have them to, places where no tool would be able to automatically match, like your opportunities or your accounts and so forth. All right, let's see. Email tracking. Are there any plans to show all the times an email was read? We do support email tracking. I didn't show that here today just due to time constraints. I don't think I have it enabled to show you any exciting data. Let's see if this will load. If you have our tracker turned on, and Lawrence, I can send you an article with screenshots with actual data populated. I'm in the record details, so here's everything about Fred that we see in Salesforce. And if you look all the way down at the bottom, I have these two sections for tracked emails. Those are link point sections, okay? So if I pop them down, with tracking enabled, we're able to show you on a record level, and I have some really great emails named here. If you send a something email to someone and they read it, we'll slot that in so you'll know the date, the time, the name of the email, and so forth. Same thing for the ones that are not read. And I'm looking at this on a person level. So this is only the emails open or not opened related to Fred. We do also have, let's see if there's anything in here today, these paw prints up here in the top, tiny icon, top of my side panel, where you can see all of your tracker history. So this is across everybody that I've sent to, okay? And I think we have a tracker pane. Yeah, I went to that kind of a kludgy way, but we do offer this window, which will in aggregate show you all of the emails that you have tracked. I don't have many because this is a demo account, but you'll be able to see sort of a running list of your interactions and whether or not they've been read. Okay, I can send you some more information on that. I apologize, my test data is a little funny looking, but hopefully that helps answer that question. Oh, you're welcome. All right, let's see. Go through the question list a little bit more here. I think I've caught up with most of these. Michael, I see your other question about having things get reset. If you're having sort of a different experience than what you're seeing on my screen, it could be in part, and again, I'm not on the support team, it could be in part because you're working with different Salesforce objects and fields than I am, because we do automatically detect a lot of that. If that's not it, our support team can take a look for you. So I'll make sure to put you in touch with someone just to make sure everything is fine-tuned from that angle. Okay, it looks like I've caught up with almost all of the questions that I think we have time for. I'm going to go back to PowerPoint one more time here. I know. Because I want to put up on the screen some helpful resources for you as you're, there we go, oops, too far. As you are considering Link Point Connect, we do have an online knowledge base, so you can take a look at some of the videos, the step-by-step instructions. If there are certain features or workflow items that are really important to you, you can see those there. We can also, if you haven't done this already, you can do a free trial. So we do offer a 14-day free access. If you've trialed in the past or you've used our software in the past and you can't get the free trial to reactivate, just email sales@linkpoint360.com. I'm behind that inbox, and I'll be able to get you reactivated or have your access re-granted so you can give it a try again. I know the version I'm showing here today is pretty updated compared to where we were even about 6 months ago or so. So if you want to give the newest version a try, we're more than happy to set that up. As I mentioned, if you have technical issues or little quirks or things you're not quite sure about because what you saw on my screen didn't 100% match yours, you can, of course, email support and they'll be able to help clarify whether or not they need to change something for you or whether it's an expected behavior. And as I said, I'm behind the sales email, so if you have account questions, access questions, best practice questions, we're happy to help. I do see some questions about going a little more in depth about comparing our functionality to other options on the market. Hopefully going in depth with a lot of these features helped show you how we stand out. But if you have specific use cases for what you need to accomplish with your email integration, we're happy to get on a quick call with you and learn a little bit about that so we can explain it in the best way. Certain features, where we do differentiate may not fit your workflows and so forth. So we want to make sure that we're giving you, the best input that we can so you can make the best decision for your company. So that about wraps it up for today. I want to thank you for joining us. And I hope that this session did help clarify how you can elevate your email integration, whether you're using a different tool, whether you haven't implemented anything yet, and where LinkPoint Connect can fit into your workflow needs, as well as increase the value of your client interactions and your Salesforce investment. It's a big deal. So we look forward to hopefully being able to work with you or continue to work with you on that. And I appreciate again all of your time joining with me today.